Hello, beautiful souls. Before we begin, I just want to share a few freebies with you. First, if you subscribe on my website, your name and contact info will be put in a jar that I pray on every morning. The angels also have me pick a few people from that jar every week to text personalized angel messages to. That could be you. All you have to do is subscribe on my website. Also, you could win a free session with me if you write a positive review of this podcast on iTunes. After you post a glowing positive review on iTunes, just email me with your name, contact info, and review, and you'll be entered into a monthly drawing to win a free session. For details on all of this, visit my website, www.jancius.com. That's spelled JANCIUS.com. You're listening to Angels and Awakening, where we believe daily life can be lived from a constant state of love, joy, peace, bliss, ease, and grace. Why are people always searching for a better way to live? Because there is one. Life doesn't have to be stress-filled and anxiety-ridden. You can make lasting changes that lead to a life you love. My name's Julie Jancius. I have the gift of connecting with angels and bringing through their healing, positive messages to my clients every day. Join us on the Angels and Awakening podcast each week as we explore big spiritual questions, interview experts, and bring through angel messages. I'm so excited you're here. Hello, everyone. I am so excited. The last few weeks, I've been telling you that we have a very, very special guest on the episode, and today is the day. Pat Longo is here. Pat is from New York. She is a spiritual teacher, and most of you would know her work because she is the woman who taught Theresa Caputo everything that she knows. Pat has worked with many other psychic mediums, famous psychic mediums. She's worked with a lot of celebrities, and she is just the most amazing healer. Many of you know that I work with a friend who's a healer, and we switch sessions every month. And she was saying, Julie, you know, you've got training in Reiki, you've got training in Chios, and you're doing such a great job. You're doing such great work, but I feel like you need to reach out and get more mediumship training. So I reached out to Pat, and she kindly agreed to teach me more and train me in mediumship specifically. So Pat, welcome to the show. I am just so elated that you're here.
Thank you, Julie. I'm elated to be here. I'm very excited since we spoke to have this opportunity to share some of my knowledge with some of your listeners. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the book, and we're going to talk a little bit about Theresa. So if you have some questions for me that you want to hit me with, I'll start right there. And I'll ad-lib as we go along.
Oh, perfect. So Pat, you have a new book coming out, and I already pre-ordered mine over on Amazon. The book is called The Gifts Beneath Your Anxiety. Can you talk to us a little bit about this? Because I'm just so excited. We have so many empaths who listen to the show.
Okay, well, the book is all about the empaths, because I see people all week long that come into me with terrible anxiety. They don't even realize that they have spiritual gifts or that they're empathic. Some of them don't even know what the word means. And my job is to help them understand how to eliminate the anxiety. I've come up with a tool. I've been using it for years, and it works. And it's interesting because I didn't have this tool when Theresa was coming to me. It all developed as a result of her show. When Theresa moved forward with TLC and the Long Island Medium, her book and her show went into about 34 different countries on the Discovery Channel. And I started to get phone calls from people from all these countries trying to figure out what was going on with them, help me get rid of my anxiety, teach me why I'm seeing and hearing and feeling things. Am I crazy? And what happened was a pattern. And when that pattern was created, I recognized what an epidemic it was, anxiety. But anxiety connected to spiritual gifts, and the empath is how I created the tools. I knew that Theresa, I knew the day that when I first took her to a group to do some reading, it was actually at a beauty salon. And I took her in there, and she was a nervous wreck. And I gave her some men. She had said, "Don't give me any men. Whatever you do, don't give me any men." She was nervous as it was. And I thought to myself, well, how many men are going to be in the hair salon? But of course, the 2 men that were there ended up with her. The other medium was already busy with other people, so I had to give them to her. And she came out of the reading, and she looked at me, and she put her hand on my arm, and she said, "I feel whole for the first time in my life." So I recognized the connection, but it was more after she went on the air that the pattern emerged. And I knew that I had to help people to stop this.
And it's so fascinating because I have been doing this for working with clients for the last 3 years, but I've only started doing a ton of parties every Saturday, every weekend, sometimes 2 a week. And at a party, you can work with 12 to 16 people. And what's fascinating is when you and I talked last week, what I was telling you is that I had so much anxiety before these parties. And I'm not an anxious person. I don't typically have a ton of anxiety. And I did a video about anxiety on Facebook a couple of months ago. And what I realized was I had a person coming in who had a lot of anxiety and had a lot of spirit with her that I was going to be bringing through right before I did that video. So that was the anxiety I was feeling there. And the anxiety before the parties, can you explain that? Because doing a party is different than doing a one-on-one reading.
Yes. Well, first of all, your guides, your guides and your angels help you all the time. If you ask, okay, they don't always jump right in unless you request it. So when I have one of my students doing a group, they begin to feel the energy, sometimes a week before. It depends. The day of could be really bad. And I remember Theresa on her way to groups used to tell me she was going to throw up. She didn't know what she was feeling. And I have other mediums that, again, I joke about it now, but because of the texting and the emojis, I get the one where the tongue sticks out like they're going to throw up on their way to a group. So everyone feels this sense of anxiety before they get there. Now, keep in mind, those 15, 16, 20, 50, however many people that are going to be in front of you, every one of their relatives are there waiting. They're so excited. So you're feeling their energy even more so than the people in the room. So sometimes you have to tell them to take a step back. And I teach my students about earth time and protection, always to protect before they go into any kind of a situation where there's a large crowd, because most empaths feel the anxiety in the crowds. Once again, it's not just the people that they're feeling. It's the loved ones that are with them, the spirit energy that are with them. So think about a mall at Christmas time, what that's like. Everybody's in a frenzy. You know, they're waiting till the last minute. They're waiting till they have their money to shop, and everybody's pawing over all the things in the store. And you, as an empath, if you're not protected and closed down and you walk into that, you're going to be bombarded with thousands of spirit energy, not to mention the people and their frenetic behavior. So protection is the most important thing to me. And protecting yourself by, again, a bubble of God's white light and protection, grounding yourself. If you're not grounded, you're in trouble. So we're going to shoot cords into the earth and lock them in really tight to ground. But the big part, the anxiety part, is putting on what I call a shiny metal vest of armor. And years ago, I used the WWE belt. And that worked great.
Explain that to people.
Yes, it's an imaginary belt. Now, I'll use my granddaughter as an example. I have a 13-year-old granddaughter who sees spirit, and she's been seeing it since she's 10. But at 8.5, I recognized she had anxiety. I was at a bridal shower, and I turned around, and she had just walked in the door, and I could see fear all over her face as a little child. And I thought to myself, how could I not know that my own granddaughter had anxiety? So I walked over to her, and I took her by the hand back to the front door, and I said, do you get uncomfortable or anxious? I didn't use the word anxious. That's not true, because I didn't think she would understand it. I said, do you get uncomfortable or nervous when you're around people you don't know? And her eyes got really big, and she nodded her head. And I said, okay, I want you to close your eyes. And I put my 2 fingers on her solar plexus, right below her breast, right there in that little hollow. And I said to her, do you know the wrestlers your brothers watch on television? And she said, yes. And I said, well, when they win, they usually hold up this big belt with a big gold buckle. And she said, yes. And I said, well, I want you to imagine that right now where my fingers are. I want you to put that belt on this spot. And she did it instantly. And that was that. The rest of the day, she had a fabulous time. I actually had to grab her and stop her as she was running past me, laughing with some of the other kids that were there. And she began to put it on every morning before school. And her test papers changed. Her teacher's comments changed. They said she came out of her shell. Everything changed for her. And as time went by, and I knew it was going to happen, I knew she was going to start to see. And she saw her first spirits at 10. She sees lots of them now. She has boundaries. She has no fear, because I made sure of that by teaching her there is no fear, and that you don't have to have anyone in your space if you don't want them there. So right now, she handles it beautifully. She doesn't need to deal with anybody. She sees her grandmother. She sees my husband, her grandfather. She sees her little girlfriend's father. She sees her dog who passed away. And she's picked up an occasional stranger here and there, and eventually has sent them out very nicely. I told her, if you're not ready to talk to them, just ask them to leave. And as soon as you do, they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about those boundaries and that protection. So when you go into a group, you want to have that in place. And once that's in place, you also want to tell your guides and your angels, please stop the group, Earth time, 2 hours. Okay? Because 2 hours is a lot of energy to expend. Mm-hmm. And you're going to give as many messages as you can in those 2 hours. But Spirit doesn't have time on the other side. You have to tell them Earth time. It's amazing how it works. And these are other things that I've discovered along my journey with different mediums. As soon as my guide just popped into my head and said, Earth time, 1 hour, Earth time, 2 hours. And it worked right away. Mm-hmm. So again, it's experience. It's my experiences with the people that I train, the people that I meet, the books that I read, and my own guidance.
That's amazing. And I'm wondering, and it's so funny because this kept happening and I wanted to tell you, but I also wanted to be respectful of your time last time that you and I chatted. There were so many instances where I was thinking of something and then you just came to that point, and you did it about 3 times just now, and you did it about 10 times when we were talking last week. But you touched on the point of fear. And so I think a lot of people who come into this gift, and I'm wondering how it was with Theresa, is it not fear? It's anxiety?
Well, you know what? Anxiety and fear kind of go together. Because an anxious person is always fear-based. They're always afraid. And I've had students come to me really as clients first. Everybody comes to me as a client first before they become my student, because I need to know where they're at. Mm-hmm. I need to judge their energy before I put them in a class with other people. Mm-hmm. And it's very important for me to gauge that myself as an empath, to feel that other person. And I like to keep ego out of everything. I like to keep everybody very balanced in my classes. And it doesn't matter how much knowledge they have and how open they are, or if they're just new beginners. I want them all to kind of be in the same energy bracket. So with Theresa as a child was always having night terrors, and I'm sure she saw a lot of things that go bump in the night as far as shadows on the wall and things that she may have thought she saw, couldn't validate, angelic light, maybe orbs. I'm not 100% sure everything that she saw. I just know she was very frightened. Mm-hmm. And my son and her younger brother grew up together from the time they were 8. And so my son spent a lot of time sleeping there, and he would hear Theresa scream, and her brother would just say, "Oh, that's just Theresa, don't pay any attention." So nobody really understood what was going on with her. So when she came to me, she had so many phobias and fears. Fear of driving. That was a big one. In the rain. Not in regular weather, in the rain. She couldn't drive in the rain. It was not comfortable for her to be a passenger in the car or in a back seat. She had difficulty going into a restaurant. She always felt like she was going to be poisoned. No elevators, no airplanes. There was a lot. Mm-hmm. And I needed to bring her down. And again, I didn't have these tools. Sometimes when I put my hands on people for healing, their anxiety just goes away. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of that with Theresa. The anxiety began to calm right from the first time I touched her. And then I did past life regressions on her, which is another source of fear. Past lives and situations that occurred. So with her, I kind of worked my way through. I think I regressed her 3 different times. Once on the air was the last time. And each time, more things went away. So that isn't the case for everyone. For her, it was necessary. But again, I didn't have the tools yet. Mm-hmm. I hadn't come up with them until after the fact. So I worked with her, and now, listen, she can drive. She's in the backseat of limos all the time. She's in elevators on the 40th floor. She flew in a helicopter over, what is it, up in, I can't even think the name of it, the waterfalls that are up by Canada. And
Niagara Falls. Yeah.
Thank you. It just went right through my brain there. But she was amazing. I would never do that.
Yeah.
All right. So I know how much fear she lost by just opening up to her gifts. Mm-hmm. The anxiety subsided tremendously for her. And she's doing what she's doing now. She's standing in front of audiences, sometimes of 5,000 people. Mm-hmm. So it works.
So how long did it take her to build the confidence to go public? Because and I'm not saying that I'm anywhere near where she is, but I have been working with clients for about 3 years. I'm doing these parties, but I take people privately, one-on-one, only because I'm too nervous to do a reading all together as a group. How long did it take her to build that confidence to kind of go public? And how long did you work with her teaching her?
Well, she actually jumped into the groups almost immediately. For someone who didn't know anything about this or have any idea that she had a gift, she started off doing, let's just say, a party one-on-one. And she didn't really like it. She preferred the group connection. Mm-hmm. So I really started her up pretty quick with the group for her. Listen, I believe that this was a divine plan.
Yeah.
And I wrote my book. I believe Theresa came to me for me to help her learn and eliminate the anxiety. I believe that Theresa's gift was definitely preordained long before she got here in this physical world, and that her job was to teach people that technically just our physical shell leaves this earth. The soul is always here. Our loved ones don't, quote unquote, die. So I had to get her to where she had to go. I also believe that it turned back to me because I had to help the world with the anxiety. So the book came from that. And the purpose of the book is to help eliminate the anxiety and to connect the dots for the empath and all their spiritual gifts that they don't realize they're carrying. So as far as time-wise, Theresa started with me, I'm going to say, it was between 2001 and 2002. And she read for 10 years in the privacy of her home. But she did do groups every single week. So she read 3 or 4 days a week, maybe 3 or 4 people a day. And then she did the groups. The groups became once a week, and then they went to 2 times a week. And it's very hard. You know, your list just builds and builds and builds, and you start adding. But you always have to remember, and I hope you remember, that you must keep time for yourself. It's so important to honor and respect yourself. And when you embark on a spiritual journey and you're reading people privately, you always need to leave some time for, let's just say, if you don't feel well, or let's say if there's inclement weather, or a child is sick, or home from school. There's so many different reasons why you have to leave yourself some backup. Yeah. So I teach my students to only read 3 days a week. They can rotate them anytime they want, year to year, but they really need to three times a week and 1 group a week is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where good. I'm pretty much at right now. And it does feel like it's definitely enough, at least without having an assistant.
Exactly. You know, when the assistant comes on, it's very helpful. And I just started this in about 1994, and everything was word of mouth. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. Everything was very different when I started out. So my home phone became a business phone, and I've kept it that way. I don't give out my cell number because my home phone is my business phone, and my cell phone is now my personal phone for my family and close friends. So I had to do things a little bit differently. That it was all word of mouth for years and years and years and years. And when a client came to me and he built websites, and he told me, if you can cure me, I'll do a website for you for free. So I said, okay. And a week later, he was building my website. Wow. We became very good friends, and he also put me on Facebook. I don't know anything about the computer. And in the position that I'm in right now, with having written a book, I need to know all about social media. And I am 70 years old this year, and social media is not something I'm familiar with. So I am, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do now with maybe a young person and get them to help me. But my husband got sick. And, he was sick from 2002, but he got really ill in 2012. And I actually hired one of my siblings to take care of my computer, my emails, my phone calls, my appointments, because there was just no time for me. And I've had them ever since. It worked really great. Having an assistant is wonderful.
That's
so when
amazing.
You do get it, you'll
Next
have a little
step.
extra free time.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
So I just wanted to honor you and Theresa with the work that you did, because I don't know if I shared this story with you. I don't think I did. I had a daughter. Well, I have only one daughter, and she was very sick early on in her life. And it was back when binge watching TV shows had just become a thing. And I was at home taking care of her, just binge watching all of the Long Island Medium episodes. This was back in about 2012. And Spirit, I didn't know it at the time, was coming through, really connecting me with my grandmother, who was still alive, but making me feel like I needed to write her a letter and just let her know that on the other side, we would fix things. And I knew that we weren't going to fix things in this lifetime. She kind of went with my dad in the divorce of my parents, and we just kind of lost touch. But I wrote her a letter saying that I had been watching this show and it just made me feel like I needed to reach out to her and let her know that I knew we were going to have a relationship. It just wouldn't be here. And that I was so sorry for any part that I had played in that. So in 2015, my dad passed away. And instead of my uncle telling my grandmother over the phone, he went to visit her in person and flew to see her to let her know. And I'm really glad that he did that because she had a heart attack immediately upon hearing the news that my dad was gone. They had only what I can describe as like a soulmate relationship as a mother daughter. Nothing romantic there, but just like it was such a strong bond between them. And she ended up passing away 10 days later in the hospital from that heart attack. And it was together, them, who brought this message through and this gift through to me, because I started hearing from my dad a month before I had known that they had passed. And I got to see Theresa in the fall, and I got to meet her backstage at one of her big, huge, conference center meetings. And I let her know this story because I think the work that you're doing for everybody here in this world is so fantastic. I know that growing up the way that I did with such strong religious family, I wouldn't have been able to even come forth with this information and come into this career if it wasn't for her show. I just wouldn't have the courage to do that. And I know that that show stems from you teaching her. So I'm just so beyond grateful to the both of you for changing this world and making this work not woo-woo, but acceptable.
Right. And, that's what it is. People either love Theresa or they hate her. It's one way or the other. People believe in it. They don't believe in it. She's very down to earth. And she has tremendous integrity. And again, the shows are edited, so you see what the show wants you to see, and that's just television. That's the way that it works. But she has a very strong faith, and she was raised in a very strong faith, as was I. So again, for me, it's not about religion. It's about faith. I accept and believe in everyone and everything, and no matter what someone calls their version of God or the Blessed Mother or the Holy Spirit, it's all acceptable to me as long as someone has the belief that there is something higher, that there is something there that is going to help us in our darkest hour. And it's really important. So, she's got that. And again, I know that it was set up that way. You asked me earlier, how much time did I spend with her? I spent a year that was out of the ordinary. I don't do that with all my students, and I have no idea why it happened that way. I think part of it was her anxiety and her need to feel secure, driving to people's homes. I only went to her groups. She learned in my class just like everybody else does every week. It was an open-ended class. I didn't have restrictions, but she began reading very quickly, as I said, and she wanted company to those groups. So I don't know how, but my life just opened up for that time frame, and I was always available on the evenings that she had groups. So what I would do is I would sit in with the group, and I just, in my mind, took notes of things that she said or did. And then we'd go out in the car and she'd say, okay, what did I do wrong? And so I would explain to her, I would critique her in the most positive way that I could of things that she could expand on. Or she likes to make fun of herself. I don't like that, but she still does it because that's who she is. I would try to temper that a little bit and just ask her how she got something and maybe direct her in another way to use another tool to get to that particular point. But this went on every single week for a whole year. Sometimes, as I said, twice a week because she did it quickly. And eventually she said to me, well, How did I do? And I said, well, you did nothing wrong. There's nothing that I can improve upon. You're doing fabulous. You don't need me anymore. And that was that. Now, I left out that when we pulled up to each house, I would also meditate her. I would put her in the light. I would have her guides. I would have her ask her guides for clarity, for speed, for accuracy, and messages of healing. And that was always added to my universal white light meditation. She still does it to this day. It's been a lot of years because I think she went on the air in 2011. And she's got a tape of it. You know, we made jokes about it a long time ago because we all used the cassette tapes.
Yeah.
And I made her, she asked me, could you make a tape of your meditation that you do in class? So I made it for her. I eventually made CDs, and now they're on iTunes. But for her, she has the tape. If it hasn't worn out, I actually think I gave her a CD for her birthday a couple of years ago. So she has a little extra. Because I don't know if the cars have, the tape cassettes anymore these days. I think they made them. So she should know it by heart.
Right.
Without anything else, she should know it by heart. But listen, she's out there doing the job that she was born to do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sacrifice in it. People don't realize what it's like to step into the arena of television. And especially when you do a job like that, where people are so desperate for help. She's opened the door for many, 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 many mediums. She's opened the door.
Absolutely.
So that people like yourself and my students can be comfortable in speaking that they are a medium and saying that they deliver messages and can help people. So
well, it's
I'm
funny
very
that you say that because, that's something else that we touched on last week is, and I think there's a couple of reasons why I say this, but I want you to describe the difference between a psychic medium, people who are angel messengers, the difference between the psychics and the mediums, because I know that I personally, in every session that I've done, always bring through loved ones. And there's only been about 5 sessions that I've had. And I want to ask you about skeptics after we go through this question, because there are people who come in with these deep walls up. So for those 5 people who the loved ones that they wanted to come through didn't come through, I didn't charge them. But everybody else who they wanted to come through was able to come through. But I feel like I've hidden behind the term angel messenger and not calling myself a psychic medium because I don't know. The religious background, what's the difference? I'll let you take it away.
Sometimes people are more comfortable with the word angels. I've even told my students sometimes if you get a message and the person that you're going to give it to, maybe it's a neighbor or a relative, that they're not open to it, you can tell them that you had a dream. I mean, you're way past that, but I will tell them that you had a dream, and the person accepts the dream. All right? Very simply and very easily, they accept a dream. But when somebody says, well, I'm hearing from your loved one, and, it's a little harder to take. At this point in time, between all the mediums that have been on television over the years, all the groundwork that they've done to get to a point where the John Edwards and the Theresas are right now, people should be more open. But again, you're going to come across it. You have to step out. All right. I taught 3 classes this week, and the big word in the classes was acceptance. Accepting who you are and not being afraid to step out and say it. Now, I'm going to tell you my thoughts on the difference between angels and guides. I can't tell you whether they're true or not. They're just my belief system. I told my students this week, I don't know everything. I don't know everything. I'm never going to know everything. And when I get to the other side, I'm going to keep learning. So we're always works in progress. But I believe that everyone has a team of angels. Everyone. No matter what their faith is, they have a team of angels. I believe the team of angels do not step into your space unless you invite them, because they're not supposed to interfere with your free will. But once you do invite them, they're there to stay. I also believe the same of your guides. I believe that your guides lived on the earth where angels have not. Yes, you hear of the angels that walk, that step on earth here and there, but technically they're etheric beings. And since you communicate with them, you could tell me if I'm right. But the guides have lived on this earth at some point in time, and they have had to have the earthly life. They've had to learn compassion, forgiveness, love of self, love of others, how not to judge. They have to keep coming back and going through earth school in order for them to get to a point where they are high enough in the light that they can become a guide. So we get our guides assigned, and we can talk to them, or we can talk to our angels. I use angels for everything. I use them for parking. I use them for traffic lights. I use them to decorate cakes when I'm in a hurry. I used them today because I was trying to get home in time to make it to my podcast. But it's always about the angels for me. They're tremendous. And I don't think it matters which way you put yourself out. You're still getting the messages from their loved ones, and maybe the angels are your facilitators. Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe you believe strongly in your angels, so they get the ball rolling and they get it started. Mm-hmm. The only thing you said that I'm gonna kind of shake my finger at you, it's not up to you who comes through.
Yeah,
and it is not up to a person to come in and say, this is the only person I want to hear from. The one thing that Theresa always says, and this had nothing to do with me, she would say, a reading is not what you want, it's what you need. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you hear from people in a reading that it's really necessary to hear from. Maybe it's an apology from somebody you didn't want to hear from, but it makes a difference in your life. So I absolutely would say to you, I would not refund people's money. As long as you're getting people for them, and you're giving messages to them that are helpful and healing messages, then you're doing your job.
Yeah.
It's really not up to you who comes through.
That's true.
You can't control that. All you can do is ask.
No, I can't. And that's what I tell my clients all the time. All I can do is give you what they're showing me and tell you what they're telling me. But there are, and it doesn't happen all the time. It is pretty rare, but every once in a while, you'll get somebody in, and I really feel the energy of people, and it's almost as if they've got this shell or this wall around their entire being, and they want the reading, but there's such a high level of skepticism there. There's such a point of wanting you to bring through names or songs or titles, and I'll tell people blank, I can't bring through something that's not there. So if it's not there, all I can do is be honest with you about that. But here is the message that they want you to receive. Sometimes with those people, that doesn't satisfy them. And that's a hard feeling because I'm such a people pleaser, and I only do this work because I truly believe it is benefiting so many people. But it is hard to work with somebody that's got those walls.
Well, the skeptics, I hold or host psychic fairs every few months, and I have 30 mediums reading at one time, and a very large crowd waiting to get in. They come a couple of hours early just to get online, to get their favorite medium or psychic or tarot reader. And I tell my students, well, they're my students, but they're professionals at this point. But I tell my students, if someone sits down in front of you and there doesn't appear to be a connection, they only have 15 minutes to read them. So they have to decide within 2 to 3 minutes. If you're going to keep getting no's, I don't understand, then I usually tell them, tell that person you're only going to give them 1 more minute. And you blame it on yourself. Okay. You say, listen, I'm having a difficult time connecting. I'm going to give you one more minute. I'm going to give it one more minute. And if that doesn't work, then you go out and see Pat. And what I will do, what that usually does actually is opens them up. If they're going to open up, it's going to be at that moment because they're so rigid and they really want the reading, but yet they don't realize what their energy is putting off. So as soon as you give them that option, they tend to relax. So that's one choice of what to do. And what I do at a fair is if they can't get through, I have them come back to me and I assign them to somebody else free, or I will give them their money back because I know what my people can do. I've tested them all, every one of them. No one goes into my fair without 595s. They have to be tested by strangers. So if I've tested them and I know what they can do, and somebody comes out and tells me, I know where the problem is. The problem is with the sitter, not with the reader. But I give them the chance because I try to be fair. But you can't do it to me twice. All right? And a few people have tried it, and I won't go down that road. I'll only do it once. So you have to just kind of let them know that you're having a little difficulty making the connection. Stop it before the reading gets to the whole hour or whatever amount of time you use. And if you really don't feel that they're opening up and letting you through, then cut it off before you lose the time and the money.
Well, it's so funny that you said that because the only way that I have found to connect to those people is to give them their power back. So Spirit said they're so closed off because a lot of times it does come down to the money factor for those people, that they're so worried about what they're going to get for their money for that hour that when I'll tell them, listen, I'm having a hard time connecting. I can sense this energetic wall. I'm happy to continue going with the reading, but Spirit is telling me that you're going to have to take it and pay what you want basically for it but that's hard, right? Because I don't do that for everybody. And then I feel like that's really unfair to everybody else. So I really like the idea, and it's only happened a couple of times. So it's not like it happens every day. But it makes me feel really bad. At the beginning, it made me feel like it was my fault.
Well, let me say it to you this way. You do your job, okay? That's all you can do. And again, it just happened to be the subject of my class these last few days. My class is, I explained to them when I became a healer. And listen, I'm a healer first and foremost before anything. All the rest of it came after. But when I became a healer, I didn't know what was happening to me. My hands just heated up. I was in a metaphysical class, and the next thing you know, I was touching people. I had no clue. I believed that it was God. I believed it was coming from a divine source. I had no other reason to believe anything else because I didn't have it one day and I had it the next day. So I always told people, you don't have to come back and see me. I still tell them. I never asked them anything in the beginning, never, for years and years and years. I didn't ask them to call me. Certainly, as I said, there was no internet. They would have had to call me. They just sent people to me. And people came and I would say, well, how did you find me? And then I'd find out that that person healed because I had no way of knowing. I had to have faith, total and complete faith, and trust in the fact that this was not me, that Spirit doesn't lie, that the energy I channel was real, and that, it wasn't me, it was coming through me. And that's what happens to you. It comes through you. It's not you. Spirit doesn't lie. There is interpretation involved, yes, but you can't take it on because then you're stepping into ego, okay? And ego to me is everything that is not godlike. So we're talking fear and doubt and worry, all right? Not being somebody who goes around and brags. That's not what I mean by ego. Ego is anything that's not godlike. And so I knew that I was doing my job. I didn't look back. I didn't worry about it. And as my business progressed, if someone came in front of me that was struggling with money, I would know it.
Right.
And if that were the case, I would just say, you know what? This one's on me.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I do that whenever I feel the need to do it. People will scrape it up because they want to see you, but sometimes your gut tells you, nah, this is not so good. They should go home and pay the electric bill.
Right.
So, that's your discernment. But to feel bad about it, you can't.
Yeah.
Because it has nothing to do with you.
Is that why, sorry to interrupt. Do most psychic mediums, angel readers, not remember the information that they're giving out in a session too? Because I run into people sometimes and they're like, do you remember this and that? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I just, working with sometimes 30 people a week, you just don't remember.
I don't remember by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Who I saw.
Yeah.
I send homework out to all my students, my clients, and I sit there and I look at their names and I'm like, I don't know who that was. They blurred together after a while, but mediums, you don't remember what you're channeling.
Yeah.
Because it's not coming from you.
Right.
You're just in that state for that time with that client. And their loved ones and your angels or whoever is sending you the information, you're channeling it right through you. It's not for you to remember. Mm-hmm. While you're doing it, you can be very aware of the things that you're saying and maybe the mannerisms that you're using, and certain things will stand out. It's rare to remember the reading. You can remember certain things about it if they're really unusual. Absolutely. Certain readings will stand out, but I do believe they're supposed to for your own learning. But for the most part, no. I can't remember people. I wish I did, because the stories would have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I can't remember it all. My guides will let me know when I need it.
Yeah. Here's another question for you. Do most people who have the gift, are they not able to do it for themselves? I know my friend always says that Sylvia Brown used to say, mediums and psychics, we can't read a lot of times for ourselves. Oh, I'll get knowings, I'll get hits, but I like to work with other people still too, to clear out my own energy. And they're only the top people who I trust with my energy, but they'll bring through stuff. And it's like, why didn't that come straight through to me?
Well, okay. I'll tell you. Listen, my sister's a medium, and I trained her. She felt like she couldn't read me. She never did read me. I watched her, I listened to her, I paid attention to make sure she was doing what I expected from her. But I made her, I was very tough on her, and I made her build her own business, I guess you could say, her own client list. And once I really heard her, then I put her on my list and said, okay, now I know what you can do. So a few months ago in class, we had an uneven number, and I was having everybody train together, and I had to participate. And she had stepped out to the ladies' room, so I didn't realize that she wasn't in the room, and she was the last one. I would not have put her with me because she's my sister, but she sat down. She said, how am I going to read you? I said, Carol, just ask for what you don't know. Just ask for what you don't know. And it was very simple. Boom, 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 boom. My husband was through. My mother was through. My father was through. My niece was through very quickly. She had no problem as long as she asked what she didn't know. Now, for yourself, it's a little tricky. Most of you will have somebody else. And I highly recommend it to have one person or two people that you can go back and forth with. The reason it's hard for us is not because we can't get it. It's because we don't trust it, because the voice is so subtle. It's so subtle that we're really not sure, is it us or is it them? So there's one girl that I worked with. She would do automatic writing. And when it was for her, her guides gave it to her in rhyme. It could be 8 pages of perfect rhyme if it was for her. If it was somebody else, it was a completely different script. But for her, it was done almost like poetry. It was 4 lines, 4 lines, 4 lines for pages. Okay, that's how she got it. This way she couldn't confuse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could possibly do it that way for yourself. Angelically, it's prettier.
Yeah.
It might not be as specific as you want, but they certainly give you the most amazing guidance when you need guidance. So, again, I don't think you can't get it. I think it's just hard to judge.
Got it. So that brings me to another question, because some people go back to what you said and say, well, how do you know that when you're in a session, you're really connecting with the other side, or it's just wishful thinking? And I know for me, it's so clear now because I've learned to gauge when I'm seeing spirit and when I'm hearing them, and it just flows so naturally for me now. But for people who are just starting out or know they're empathic, how do they know that it's really them connecting with the other side or just wishful thinking?
The only way to know for sure is practice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one of the reasons I hold my classes. It's a practice venue. There has to be ways to practice. There's a lot of people that have groups up online now. I tell my students all over the world, because I work in all these different countries, I tell them the first thing you do when you're starting to feel comfortable, you know things are coming through, but you're not quite sure about it, you ask 2 people that you know that know what you're doing, maybe a coworker, a family member, a friend. You ask those 2 people to get 2 people each that you don't know. So now you have 6 people.
Yeah.
You set up a time. You do 15 minutes in a private room with each person. Now, there's no money changing hands. This is called practice. So it's practice for you and validation if you're giving them messages that make sense. And it's also a blessing and a gift to those that are the ones coming in getting the information. Now, when you finally know that you're on the right track, it's going to be when these people start saying, I want to bring my sister, I want to bring my coworker, I want to bring my friend, I want to bring my mother, because you're giving them what they need.
Right.
That's how you're going to know for sure that you're not crazy, because the voice is subtle. It goes with feelings. Pay attention to the feelings that you feel in your solar plexus. Your body doesn't lie. And as I said earlier, spirit doesn't lie, but you have to interpret it. If you're lucky enough to see, not everybody's visual, but if you're lucky enough to see, you have the trifecta and you put it all together like pieces of a puzzle. Listen, this isn't easy. It's like charades or learning a foreign language. It's not cut and dry. People on television, Sylvia Brown back in the day, and James Van Praagh and John Edwards and so many others, and Theresa, they make it look easy.
Yeah.
It's not that simple. It really isn't. It's a whole bunch of things being thrown at you at once that you have to pull and, begin to read with. So it's about practice. That's the bottom line. It's about practice.
Well, and I heard one of the bigger mediums one time, I forget which one of those it was, say that, every medium is psychic, but not every psychic is medium. And for mediums, I heard them say there are some people who can tap into other ones, like loved ones on the other side, who bring through very specific information. And there are some people who can tap into loved ones on the other side, but only for a short period of time. So what is your definition? When do you allow your students to say, I am a medium?
Okay, that's a great question. I say the exact same thing. Every medium is a psychic, but not every psychic is a medium. Okay, now, what that means is it's a matter of vibration. How high you can raise your vibration. Spirit has to lower their vibration to connect to us. So how high you raise that vibration is based on meditation. It's based on integrity, being a good person. There's a lot of things that go with it. All right. It also is based too on past lives to me. The more you've done this in another life, the better you're at it in the next life. Okay. So there's a lot of gauges there. Now, a medium can hold the energy for hours. A psychic can bring through loved ones. Absolutely 100%. But for a minute or two. They can't hold it for hours and hours. Does that mean they won't become a medium at some point? Absolutely not. They can progress as they spiritually evolve and grow. I've seen psychics in my class be phenomenal psychics, and then all of a sudden one day, boom, mediumship has arrived. I think the need for it in the world after 9/11, I noticed a lot of psychics stepping into the mediumship category because there were so many thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people that needed that help and not enough mediums to go around. So I think it's a time thing. It's a time, and again, it has a lot to do with integrity and learning to raise your vibration. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I think for the very first time, since knowing that I had this gift, I think I feel comfortable with calling myself a medium. And maybe I'll create a new term, angel medium.
That's a very nice one. I love it. Yeah. You are an angel medium. Okay. Yeah. And we just have to claim it. We have to own it because your guides are waiting for you to own it. All right. The first time that I said out loud to somebody that I was a healer, I was at my insurance company, and we were going over some policy stuff, and the guy was filling out the form, and he said, "And what do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a healer." And what happened was it sparked an amazing conversation, and we started talking about it. And he had 2 autistic nephews, and it just went in the direction it was supposed to go. But I have to be who I am. And I recently went to a new doctor, getting ready to do a colonoscopy, probably 7 years, but something I need to do. And he asked me, what did I do? And I said, I'm a healer. And he hesitated for a second. He was typing in the computer. And I guess he let it soak in for a minute. And then he said, well, what exactly does a healer do? So he continued to type, and I just gave him a little bit. I explained that it's energetic and energy channels through me and out my hands. And he continued to type and absorbed it and asked me a few more things. And then he comes back and he said to me, what's the most amazing healing that you've ever done? So he was, he was processing everything, but at least he was open to it. Yeah. He asked me. And I found it to be very enlightening and refreshing to have somebody. And he wasn't young. He was definitely probably in his 60s, maybe close to my own age. But he was open to it. So again, I think more people are. I never know who I'm going to say what to. Mm-hmm. I'm going to extend it a little further. I had fallen in January. I had gone to Aruba with my daughters and 2 of my granddaughters, and I slipped on wet tile at the airport, and I went up in the air and I came down, and I smashed the whole right side of my body, and I was okay. It hurt. I bruised. My ankle swelled. They put me in a wheelchair. It was a little drama, but I was okay.
So sorry.
And I know I'm fine. I've had a couple of them in the last couple of years. My angels love me very much, and they don't let me land too hard. I don't even get a bruise. It's crazy. And I'm very thankful and blessed. But I had to go to a physical therapist. To somebody to fit me for a little thing on my ankle. Almost like it wasn't a brace, but a piece of canvas with some straps. I've never put it on, which is terrible. But I did go. And the gentleman that was sitting with me, he told me that he had a prosthetic leg. I don't know why. Or maybe I noticed it. I don't know. But I'm one of those people that have to know. So I asked him how it happened, and he proceeded to tell me. And we ended up in an appointment that should have taken 10 minutes for an hour because we had an entire spiritual conversation. And he was a total non-believer, but when he left and I left, he was completely turned around. Came to my psychic fair, took my card, said he was going to tell his wife all about it. So for me, whoever is placed in my path that's supposed to have healing, I always ask for it. I say whoever, whether it's at a bridal shower or a pool party, in an airport. I've had to sit with a woman on a plane who was being abused, and she was returning back to her abuser, and my seat got mixed up. And my husband was looking all over for a seat for me, and I ended up sitting, and I said, no, I have to stay here. And God puts me where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
He always does. So you have to trust. You have to trust. Don't be afraid to say what you do. And that goes for everybody that's listening out there, to own it, stand behind it, because, your angels stand behind you. Your guides stand behind you. We all have a team. Use them.
Yeah.
They love us.
So here I am at my final question. I want people listening to know, if they're empathic, if they feel like they want to develop this gift for themselves, to use for themselves, or to do this as their career, what would you say to those people? How do they know that they're empathic? How do they know that it's the right decision to do this work?
Well, more people come to me with the feeling of having a void, not knowing, or let's just say they know there's something going on. They know there's more for them. They know there's a purpose, but they're not quite sure what it is. And when they sit with me and we go over a session, we kind of figure it out. I can't tell you for sure if somebody's a medium or if they're a healer, not right off the bat. If I feel their hands, and their hands are hot when they give me a hug, I know they have healing energy. I absolutely know that automatically. Sometimes I see auras around their hands. So if I see purple, I know they have mediumship. If I see green, I know they have healing. There's lots of different colors, and every person interprets them their own way, but that's my interpretation. What I'm going to say to them is to read my book. Now, everything's in the book. I went through everything, explaining all about empaths, explaining about gifts, explaining about how they hear, feel, and see. I put it all out there. I gave them all the tools I could possibly think of. I gave them meditations. Everything in that book is for the empath. And the reason that I wrote the book is because I'm only one human being, and I can only get to so many people. And I can only get the information out so far. So the book became the next tool to get it where it has to go. So that's what I'm going to rest with.
That's perfect.
I know you said it in the beginning. It's the gifts beneath your anxiety. Mm-hmm. But it's all about the simple spiritual tools of how to heal their lives and open up to the power within.
That's beautiful. The book comes out in August, but right now on Amazon, you can pre-order the book and it'll be shipped to you that day. What day in August does it come out?
I believe August 27th. I'm going to be doing all kinds of running around for it. I will be in Chicago for, November 7th. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be doing a theater in Wilmette, and I'm going to be in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, at the Ridge Resort, doing a thing there, a keynote speaker talking about all of this and other things, and doing healings. So all things can be found on my website, which is patlongo.net. It's really simple.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll get to see you too and meet you personally.
Yeah. For anybody listening out there, I will definitely be at the November 7th event in Wilmette to see Pat in person here. I'm actually also going to go out to Milwaukee to see her speak because she is the keynote speaker at this event coming up this fall in Milwaukee. So if you want to come not Milwaukee, it's Madison. Lake Geneva.
It's Wisconsin, yes.
Yeah, it's Wisconsin.
I have not posted the Wilmette theater one yet because I haven't been given the times, but it is going to take place and it'll be up soon.
Okay. Yeah. So whenever you have that information, I will try and get a group together out here and we can all go to see you at those two places together. Not Madison, not Milwaukee. Lake Geneva, which is so much better for us Chicagoans. It's not that far at all.
Closer. Yes, it's a lot closer.
Yes.
I am thrilled to have sat and had this time to talk with you and your listeners, and I look forward to meeting you.
Oh, I so look forward to meeting you too, Pat, and working with you. I'm so excited to be able to have your mentorship and to continue this friendship.
Okay, you've got it. It's going to continue. I guarantee it.
Yay. Okay, well, thank you everybody for tuning in. And Pat, thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with us. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for asking.
Have a great day, everyone. My dear friends, you don't know what an incredible, huge, huge, huge blessing it is to this podcast when you write a glowing, positive review for us. It truly helps us get the best experts on the show. I know this might sound a little complex, but if you send me an email after you post a glowing, positive review here, I will put your name into a monthly drawing to win a free 30-minute angel message session with me. And it may just be broadcast on this show at a later date. Your name will be kept in the drawing every month until you win. When you email me, don't forget to include your name, contact information, and positive review. I hope you win. Tune in for a new episode next week where I'll share tools and guidance that can help you fall in love with your life and start living it from a place of peace, bliss, and ease. Thank you so much for listening to the Angels and Awakening podcast. Until next time, know in your heart just how deeply you're loved on the other side, and open up your heart to all of the random, unexpected blessings that your angels and your spirit team are trying to bring into your life right now. Disclaimer: this podcast provides general information and discussion about energy healing, spiritual topics, and related subjects. The conversations and other content provided in this podcast and in any linked materials are not intended and should not be construed as medical, psychological, and/or professional advice. If the listener or any other person has a medical concern, he or she should consult with an appropriately licensed physician or other healthcare professional. Never make any medical or health-related decision based in whole or even in part on anything contained in the Angels and Awakening podcast or in any of our linked materials. You should not rely on any information contained in this podcast and related materials in making medical, health-related, or other decisions. You should consult a licensed physician or appropriately credentialed healthcare worker in your community in all matters relating to your health. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Again, angel messages, energy healing, and the information you receive here does not constitute legal, psychological, medical, business, relationship, or financial advice. Do not take any of the advice given in any Angels and Awakening podcasts or sessions in lieu of medical, psychological, legal, financial, or general professional advice. Please note, Angels and Awakening is a podcast produced by Chicago Energy Healing, a company with locations in Wheaton and Naperville, Illinois.